Welcome back to the Course Creation Incubator. I'm Gina Onativia, online course coach and consultant, and as always, my outcome for this podcast is to get you fired up about your own course creation, to give you a couple of tips, tools, insights to help you get your course done. And I'm a person who believes in fate, and that certain things happen for a reason. I got this voice text from one of my accelerator grads the other day, and she was talking about how she's been hustling her entire life. And then with this course, suddenly she made $48,000 over 6 or 7 months. And then it was gone. The money was totally gone. And she had a sense of where it went, but at the same time, she didn't know where it went. So she said to me, could you do a podcast about how to manage our money better as course creators? And around that same time, a friend introduced me to Tina Tower, who's an online course business strategist who is an expert in managing money and cash flow. And I'm thinking, this is too much. This is fate. I have to have Tina on to talk about how we as course creators can manage our money better, can manage our expenses. So Tina came on the show, and I got to tell you, she is absolutely brilliant. She is a firecracker, and I cannot wait for you to hear this interview. By the way, I should also mention that Tina has a very popular podcast called Her Empire Builder and a successful first book, One Life: How to Live the Life of Your Dreams. So she's a badass. I needed her on to talk to us about money. So if you have made money with your course in the past and aren't sure where the money went, or you plan to make money very soon, and if you're listening, this should be all of you, then I want you to listen in on what Tina shares about managing your expenses, where your money should go, and how to scale your course and your course business to another level. All right, let's listen in. Tina, so thrilled to have you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
I cannot wait to have this conversation with you because I've talked to a few course creators over the last few days about money, about cash flow. And I know you are an expert here, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this. So let's start with the big question. What's the best way to manage your money or cash flow when you're just starting out as a new course creator?
Look, it's not an easy thing, and I think what we see publicly is often very different to what happens in actuality in the majority of businesses. So a lot of people will enter course creation going, "Oh my gosh, six-figure launches, seven-figure launches! I'm gonna be rich," and yeah, right.
Right.
And then no one really talks about, well, I just did this $200,000 launch, but I spent 180,000 of it on Facebook ads.
Right.
So not all launches are created equal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're starting out, things are going to cost money, especially if you don't have the tech skills yourself. So I'm always into do as much as you can at the beginning, so that you can hold on to cash flow. And I know there's people everywhere that go, outsource everything. Don't do things that aren't in your genius zone. The thing is, if you want to go broke real fast, outsource everything. So if you can't afford it, do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. On that topic, what do you think course creators should be outsourcing, if anything, when they're first starting out?
So I think outsource the things that you can't do
Okay.
physically.
Yeah.
So like things like a website, you want to have that running perfectly. That if you're not into tech yourself, then it's going to be better to pay someone a couple $1,000s and get that perfect from the beginning. But in things like outsourcing your social media, your copywriting, your branding, like I talk to people and they go, they're all excited about their first new business and they go and spend, $5,000-6,000 on a branding package to get their colors and their fonts and stuff. Open Canva and have a play.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you're saying right now. And I always talk about 2.0 too, with, and I'm sure you talk about this, minimum viable product, especially the first time out. And then you can get fancy. Like I talk about that in terms of filming too, right? And I'm sure you're an advocate, like don't spend a lot of money on your filming when you're first starting out, right? DIY that. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like a lot of people you see, like one of my favorite course creators in history, and probably the best in the business, I think, is Marie Forleo. And you look at her filming of Marie TV, and it is like it's like a TV show. Like the production cost on that is huge. And so many people will do their filming and go, oh my gosh, like it doesn't look like Marie Forleo's. Of course it doesn't. You don't have tens of thousands of dollars of budget. But what we all do have pretty much is a phone in our pocket, which has exceptional filming quality, that if we get that out there and then kind of get to your first critical mass, like get to your first 10,000 and then reinvest that back in your next filming equipment and always continue improving. But so many people I find spend all their money on doing that, but then they've got nothing left for marketing. And so there's no one there to buy anything, and it sucks.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And I love what you're saying about we have to leave that money for marketing. And also,
Mm.
speaking of Marie Forleo, I get course creators who come up to me about her course site. And they said,
Yes.
how can I have a
Yes.
gorgeous site like that? I'm like, well, that's custom, right?
About
We're going to,
50 to
yeah,
$100,000 is how you can
sure.
have it like that.
Yes, easy. Why don't we start smaller, right?
Yeah.
Baby steps with that
Yeah.
and build from there. And I know you and I are both big fans of Kajabi.
Yes.
So, and Kajabi is everything you need. No need to have the custom.
Yeah.
And then
And
you
you know
build
what's
from
one of my
there.
favorite examples on that is Brendan Burchard. So Brendan
Yep.
Burchard does like 8 figures a year. He's like personal development gold. He has one of the most basic, worst Kajabi sites I have ever seen. Every time I go onto it, I'm like, oh my God. But I love him for that, because part of his example is you don't need all of these custom amazing things to be successful. You need really good content and deliver on the transformation promise that you're promising to people.
That's great. You and I are talking
We're on the
the
same
same talk.
page.
Yes, we are 100% on the same page. And I love that Brendan has a simple site because it is
Yeah.
all about the transformation.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the money. How much is there a number in your head that I should be allocating to expenses as a newbie if I'm building my first course?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been in business now 17 years. So
Wow.
a long time.
Yeah.
And I had a business coach like early in my journey. I think I was about 3 or 4 years in, that showed me the concept of money pies. So, like having your complete 100% of all of the revenue that comes into your business and allocating certain percentages that are in line with your values and how you want the business to grow. Because that way you don't kind of run out of money on doing one thing. So, an example of that is always 20% is mine.
Okay.
So, whatever revenue we get, even when I earn $100, $20, mine. So that goes
Nice.
straight in there.
Yeah.
And then 20% goes on marketing. So that's all, because marketing can blow out really, really easily. So if there's
Hmm.
different marketing things that I want to do, I'll always look at the previous quarter and then work out, okay, what was 20% of that? That's my marketing budget for the future quarter. And so everything that I want to do has to fit into that. And if there's something that doesn't, I literally have to wait. I can't spend what I don't have, because I've always wanted my businesses to be funded by revenue, not funded by debt. And oh my gosh, so heartbreaking how many people work their asses off and then end up with no money left. And we're
Yeah.
not running charities.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
20, okay, so I've got 20% is mine. Love that. Pay yourself first.
Yes.
20% is marketing. What else is in that pie?
Yeah.
Break it down for me.
So it does change slightly as you get bigger. So
Okay.
my online course business is now just over the $1 million mark.
Okay.
And so my marketing's dropped to about 10% now. But in the early days, we were always at 20%.
Hmm.
20% was also allocated to team. So when I wanted to hire someone to do, say, Facebook ads, or when I wanted to hire someone to do some new Canva templates or whatever I wanted in marketing, I couldn't go over that amount, which meant that it couldn't kind of blow out.
Good.
And so the same when I wanted to hire my first staff member, like my internal staff member,
Yep.
I was looking at that and I had to wait until their salary, like until I had enough in that 20% for their salary. And so I started for the first time with someone at 10 hours a week, and then I upped it to 20 hours a week. And now I have full-time staff. But a lot of people I find go over and then wonder why they're so broke.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay,
Yeah.
so I've gone up to 60% breakdown with the team. Where's the rest of that 40% of that pie going?
Yeah. So then the rest of it's all itty bitty parts. So
Okay.
I've got like 4% of mine goes to education. I've always spent a lot of money on coaching, masterminds,
That's
programs,
great. Yeah.
courses, learning everything. Um, again, I probably blew out a lot in the early days. I remember like one year, I earned 36,000 and I spent like 28 on courses.
We all do it. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned
Yeah.
that lesson one time. And then we've got software costs. So software kind of works out to be between 1% and 2%, which
Yep.
is fabulous. I mean, I think the software that we have to be able to run our businesses now is just incredible. I see
I
people like you
know.
mentioned Kajabi before. Kajabi is like $150 a month, which I see people complain about. And I'm like, oh my God, the business you can run with $150 a month product is like mind blowing.
Yes, everything you need. I know, or so much of you need in a
Yeah.
business owner is inside of there. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
look what it can do for your business. So
Yes, like the cost of running business 10 years ago was so much more than it is now. And we can automate so much with software. And it's beautiful. But we do that. Travel, which I have saved a lot of in the last
yes,
12
I'm
months.
sure. Very nice.
Yes. Yes. Everyone listening can probably tell by my accent, I'm Australian, and usually I'm in the US every kind of 8 to 12 weeks. So I've saved a fortune on not
Yeah,
traveling. So
I
it's got
bet.
its perks. It's got its perks. We give 4% to charity as well. So we pay for
Great.
scholarships for girls in Kenya, which I love being part of. And I think that's, that just comes down to people's personal preferences if they want to have that as part of their business or not. Then I have equipment. So again, only
Yep.
2% to equipment.
Okay.
So whenever I see, like it happened to me like 2 days ago, I saw someone set up and they had the most amazing lights. And I'm like, oh my God, where'd you get these lights from? These lights look amazing. And they told me, I looked them up and I'm going, you know what? I've spent that budget for this
Yep.
quarter. So I have to wait until next quarter. And I think a lot of people, especially when you start making money from courses, it can get really exciting if you have like a launch week and you get 10, 20, $30,000 in and you're not used to that volume of money. You can be like, woohoo, and feel like you're showering in $100 bills and just go spend it all and then go, it's all gone. So you have to watch those pies, which is why I always like to go like completion backwards. So always what I'm spending in the future is based on the numbers in the past, so that profit buffer is always building up in the bank account there as well.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. You mentioned those course creators that get really excited with that flow, right? That cash flow that they didn't expect. Part of the reason why I wanted to sit down with you today, Tina, is because I have a student. So I have students who typically do, say, $5,000 or $10,000 launches to start, and then grow from there. I have a student who made 50,000 over 7 months and just completely exploded. She had an incredible audience just waiting for a course from her. So she made this 50 grand in 7 months, quickly blew it in 7 months. And then she left me a voicemail and she said, Gina, how do I manage this better going into the next year? I don't want to do this again. Like, I kind of know where the money went, but I kind of don't. So, Tina, what would you say to my student who feels like, obviously the pie, like that's a great way to start, but what other advice would you give her?
Yeah, I think, well, two things mainly. So one of them is what we think we spend our money on and what we actually spend our money on are two very different things. It's the same as when a personal trainer asks you to keep a food diary and you naturally eat better.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about with
I know
that.
100% because I'm doing it right now. Like, yes.
Yeah. And so you alter your behavior. So a lot of the time we think, because everything's so electronic as well, it's really easy to spend money without actually registering what we spent it on. So the first thing I would do is go to that last 12 months, get all your profit and loss statements, get all of your bank account statements, all your credit card statements, your PayPal, everything, and work out where every single cent went. And
Yeah.
then kind of group them together into those categories of software, equipment, marketing, course costs, team, admin, like all of the different categories, and then work out what percentage went into each of them. Because it's like, so people can hear about the pie sort of strategy and go, all right, well, I want to do that in the future. But say you go, all right, I'm going to do 20% marketing, but last year you spent 82% marketing. That's a big behavior adjustment. So
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do that unless you've seen what you've done and you know what you need to alter in your spending habits going forward. So that would be the first thing.
Yes.
And then the second thing I think is you need to earn more. because while 50,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, it's not
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah.
It goes really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to what you're saying about tracking and really knowing what you're spending and
Yeah.
having a system against that, because I would dare to say this particular student doesn't have a system for that. Like to pick up something like, so we have QuickBooks,
Yes.
or what are you tracking on right now?
Yeah. So we use Xero mostly in
Okay.
Australia, which is pretty much identical to QuickBooks.
Okay, so great.
Yeah.
Whatever system works for you to track everything that Tina's
Yeah.
talking about today, just getting a system so you can then run those reports, get an idea of your P&L, right?
Yeah, and
So,
it tells you, like, at the end of every month, I ask so many people, like, at the end of every month, have you taken an hour to review your profit and loss statement? And so many people go, yeah, no, I don't really want to know, or just operate off the cash in their bank. And it's kind of like when there's money there, they spend it. When there's not money there, they're like, I don't know where it's gone or where it's coming from, which to me is really like, that'd be nerve wracking. I don't know. I'm a control freak. I like to know the numbers of everything all the time.
well, I think also what you're talking about here, Tina, is that we need to run our course creation like a business. So, and I know
Yeah.
it seems like a simple idea, but sometimes when you're starting out, it feels like a hobby. It feels like a side
Yes.
hustle, and you're not treating it like a holistic business, right? So I
Yeah,
think
and I
there's this
think a
little
lot of
mind shift
people,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we're sometimes sold on a bit of a bum steer at the start too. I don't know if that's a really Australian saying, a bit of
I
a
love
bum,
it. Bum
even
steer.
a bit
Tell
of a
me.
bum steer. But you hear so often people saying online course creation is passive income. And so when people end up with all these expenses, they think they're doing something wrong because it's not just
Yeah.
all pure profit.
Right.
There was a talk on the Facebook group that I'm part of that's got like 20,000 course creators in there about this topic. And so many people were going, we have a profit level of 90%, 95%. I'm going, bullshit.
No
No, you
way.
don't.
No.
Show me. Show me that and I'll show you a liar. Because it's just not true. You can't get 90% until you're like in the millions to be able to do that. Like up until seven figures, you're lucky if you're sitting at a 20 to 40% profit margin because
Yep.
business costs money to run. It
Yep.
just does.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize that as course creators. We've gone through several mistakes over the course of the last 20 minutes. Are we missing any that we should share with our listeners in terms of how we're spending our money, our expenses, or how we're budgeting with our course creation?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this just a second ago, but I think knowing your numbers and getting familiar with it so that
Yeah.
it's not a scary thing. Women are socially conditioned to ignore numbers as well.
Yep.
And so many women will say, I'm not good with numbers. The way you get good with it, I mean, I just passed basic maths in high school. And so I had, when I started my business, this whole thing of I'm not great with numbers, I'm not great with maths. Man, I can work my way around a spreadsheet like nobody's business now. But it means like I always know where I stand. So the first thing I do when I get to my desk every morning is I open my internet banking and I have a look at everything that happened yesterday, what came in, what came out, because it's amazing how and people are often surprised by this. Like I said before, my business is quite successful now, but I don't waste a cent. If I see like a $50 something go out that I'm like, what was that software for? Like, do I really need that now? I will stop it right away because it's kind of something that the cents become those dollars and they make the biggest impact in there as well.
I love what you're saying, though. I think habits, right? Money habits is what you're saying too. A few things that as women, sometimes we think, okay, we're not really great with money, right? But that's a falsehood. That's a myth. And then this idea that we need to build up our habits every day. I love that you're checking what's going in, what's going out. Every month you're looking at your P&L. So, and you have that already conditioned in you. And then maybe we need to start putting that on our calendars and making sure that we're alerted to that until we build that habit.
Yeah. Yeah. And having your parameters. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day and his business has about 3.2, 3.3 million a year in course revenue. So great, successful business. But so he does a very similar thing to me with his pie and he goes 10% goes in course costs. So goes back to members kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows when it comes time for Christmas, they can go like $150 is their Christmas gift. If they go $160, that's thousands of dollars that has gone. And so he's got to be really careful to watch all of those numbers and make sure, because it's all in scale. And I think so many, especially women, we're such givers, and we'll just go, oh, my client would like this. I'll send that. Like I was talking to someone the other day and their client was starting a podcast and they thought, oh, that's really nice. I'll encourage them and send them a podcast mic. And I'm like, holy guacamole. That was very generous.
Yes. Wow.
But I'm like, where did that sit? Like, can you afford that in your
Where that's
cost
in your
allocation?
pie, right? How much of that pie is going out there? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we worked it out, she's giving about 21% back a year into the cost, which is lovely and generous, but it's not necessary.
Right.
And it's eating into too much of that pie, which means she can do that if she wants to, if that's in her value system, but then there's only 100% in that pie. So it's got to come from somewhere else. So a lot of it, when people are designing their pie, is it's amazing how quickly those 100 points are gone. And so if you take some from somewhere, you've got to put them somewhere else. And it's just this big balancing act. So I would say to people, play with that. And mine is quite low because I do a lot of organic marketing. I don't do Facebook advertising, but for friends of mine that are course creators that pump it through Facebook advertising and evergreen funnels, their marketing can sometimes sit at 40 to 50% in that cost, which doesn't leave much for everything else. So you've got to be really careful, or you'll just end up at the end of every month with no money, which is very depressing.
Very depressing.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to my student who made the 50,000 in 7 months. And you said that's not enough money. And I agree. I think she has the capacity to make hundreds of thousands this year. What's the number one tip you have to scale?
Oh, the number one, you've got to do all the things, Gina. All the things. I think the number one thing to scale is content marketing. It's how I've managed to build my business, is the good old fashioned content marketing. But that's not kind of one thing. That's like I am right now, being on your podcast and people are listening that never knew I existed, that now if something's resonated, they're like, oh, I'll look this lady up. And then they get on Instagram, or then they download my freebie and then they go on my nurture list. And that's kind of how it grows. So the way I've grown is I've got a small but engaged community. And so I love that. So many people have mass communities and they're swamped with all these DMs and all these things and looking like Insta famous, but no one's buying anything from them.
Right. Yes. I know those people well. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So it's, I would say put a lot of effort into delivering massive value to your perfect customer, and then remembering to put calls to action in there as well, so that they actually are invited to buy.
Okay. And then I want to go back to remembering your balance too. I think for this specific student who has that engaged audience, like keeping track of your pie and knowing what's going where, that will help you also scale that business. Okay. I love that. I know you got to go. I know you're a busy woman. Final tips overall for just course creation, growing this year, just doing our marketing, whatever you want to share with us.
Yeah, I think sell more. So especially women that I speak to, they're sitting on, like, they're the best kept secrets. They've got these amazing programs. They've put all this effort into the back end of, and perfect websites and blog posts and doing everything, but not actually asking for people to buy, and not confidently saying, you know what, I'm awesome. What I've created here is brilliant and I can deliver on this transformation promise. Come on in. Here's how you can buy from me. Like, I see so many people make it so difficult. I'll go to their website and go, how do I engage them for services? Like, why do I have to click 10
Where's
times?
The call
like,
to action, right?
Yeah. Yes. Send me the offer. I mean, it's very simple. I go, the way you sell more is put more offers in front of more people.
I love this. And I just did a podcast on this, Tina, about how we tend to whisper. Like we create this course, we birth courses, right? And then we send out an email, or we post one Insta post, and then we expect buyers.
People are like, well, I sent it out.
It's like, well, where are your call to actions? Where are you making offers? Yes. And yes, sell more. I mean, it's so simple, but some of us are not doing it. So that's,
and it is
amazing.
Like, when it's the same as when you ask, like, what's the one thing? It is a lot more work, I think, than a lot of people would have imagined. I mean, I just did my 15th launch, and I launch again in about a month.
Yeah. Good for you.
And so I've got it pretty dialed in now with how to do it, but it's many things. Like every day we're emailing, we're running webinars, we're running lives on Facebook, on Instagram, we're doing Instagram TV, we're doing reels, I'm on podcasts, I'm on all these different things that happen every day of that launch. It's freaking exhausting. But it's necessary and it works. And I see people that come out and they're in launch and they're like, well, I sent a couple of emails and I put it on my social media and no one bought. And I'm like, well, you need to 50 times that effort.
You need to do a proper launch. Like you said, all the things. Tina, where can my listeners learn more about you and your content?
Yeah, if I've done my job right, I should be easy to find. So tinatower.com.
tinatower.com. Check it out because I feel like you are a sister from another mother across the world in Australia. Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Gina.
Hey, it's me again. Were you blown away by Tina? I meant it when I said she's like a sister from another mother from across the world. I love her idea of breaking up your course pie into the right ways and to manage your P&L every month and to set those systems in place. When I worked for Tony Robbins, we always talked about you can't manage what you can't measure. So I want you all to have a plan in place for that, to measure your expenses, your budgets month to month. Okay, get those systems in place and I'll see you next week. Please rate and review this episode, especially if you're listening on iTunes, and then subscribe. I would love to get the word out about this podcast so you and I can help build up our course creator community. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.